All right, let's talk about it. We are living through one of the biggest shakeups our industry has ever seen. I'm talking about generative AI, and it's completely changing the game for software engineering. So, if you're a developer, a product owner, an architect, listen up. Your job isn't going away, not even close. In fact, it's about to become more important, more valuable than you can probably imagine. And this quote right here, it just nails the core of this whole shift. For so long, our value was all about construction, right? Building things by hand, one line of code at a time. But now it's about orchestration. We're not the bricklayers anymore, we're the conductors. Our job is to supervise, to guide, and to orchestrate these incredibly powerful AI tools that are doing the actual building for us. It's a huge change, so let's really dig into what that means. So here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start by looking back at what I'm calling the Age of Craftsmanship. Then we'll jump into this new era of orchestration and evolution. After that, we'll get really specific about the skills that are most valuable right now. And finally, we'll gaze into the crystal ball and talk about the future of engineering. Okay, first up, the Age of Craftsmanship. To really get a handle on how massive this change is, we got to look at where we came from, the world before GenAI took over. Think about it. Before all this AI stuff, code was scarce. It was expensive. Every single feature was built by hand, brick by painful brick. You know, a developer's whole job was to take a human idea, this fuzzy, abstract concept, and meticulously translate it into the super rigid, totally unforgiving language that a computer gets. It really was a craft, an art form. Yeah, we were basically syntax artisans. Our value, our whole identity was tied up in mastering the mechanics. You remember, right? Stepping through a debugger, line by line, for hours. Or just memorizing all the weird quirks and functions of a library or a framework. That was the job. That was the graft. And who could forget this classic move, the Stack Overflow loop? Oh man, we all lived this. You'd have a problem, you'd Google it, you'd sift through a dozen different answers, find a code snippet that looked kinda right, and then spend the next hour trying to shoehorn it into your own code. It was slow, it was painful, but you know what? It forced you to actually understand what you were doing. And then, bam, seemingly overnight, everything flipped on its head. That core economic principle of our world, that code is scarce and valuable, it just got completely inverted. Suddenly, code became abundant. You could generate pages of it in seconds. So that brings us to where we are now, the new era of orchestration and evolution. And I really want to hammer this home. Your role is transforming, it's not disappearing. The whole game is shifting from being on the tools to being the strategist, the supervisor. So let's look at the developer role. We were syntax artisans, but now we're becoming AI supervisors. The focus isn't on manually building stuff anymore. Now it's about curating the context, giving the AI exactly what it needs to get the job done right. Your value isn't about what you can remember. It's about your ability to look at what the AI spits out and say, yep, that's right, or whoa, hold on, that's subtly wrong. It's a totally different kind of thinking. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, especially for those of you who've been in the trenches for a while. Let's talk about how your skills actually transfer over. Look at debugging. That deep, intuitive mindset you've built over years of hunting down bugs, that has high transferability. You're just swapping out hunting for a missing semicolon with spotting a flaw in the AI's logic. This is the unfair advantage for experienced devs. A newcomer who's only ever used AI to code simply won't have that mental muscle. But then you look at raw code creation, your mastery of syntax, that's got low transferability now. It's becoming a commodity. The absolute most critical skill we all need now is the ability to verify what the AI is producing. And it's not just developers. Product owners are getting a massive upgrade. You used to be translators of intent, right? Writing endless user stories, playing backlog Tetris. Well, now you're value architects. Imagine being able to spin up a functional prototype of your idea in minutes, not weeks. You're not just writing tickets, you're defining the behavioral rules for the AI and asking the big question, is this even feasible with AI? That's a whole new level of impact. And what about the architects? Well, they're going from being structural governors, designing predictable systems, to becoming cognitive curators of unpredictable, intelligent systems. So instead of just thinking about SQL databases and REST APIs, you're now designing cognitive flows. You're working with things like RAG, that's retrieval augmented generation, basically a way to keep the AI from making stuff up. And you're figuring out how to govern whole teams of AI agents working together. It's a wild new frontier. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. What are the skills you need to be focusing on right now? Well, it's all about moving from writing code to shaping how an AI actually reasons. First on the list, context engineering. Now, this is way more than just prompt engineering. Think of it like this. You're the AI's personal librarian. It's your job to curate the perfect little knowledge window for it, giving it the exact information it needs to solve a problem without going off the rails and hallucinating. You're not programming the CPU anymore. You're programming the AI's context, its short-term memory. Next up, a skill that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, agentic workflow debugging. So when an AI agent messes up, you're not looking for a typo in the code. No, you're analyzing its trajectory. That's its entire chain of thought, its log of actions, to figure out why it failed. Where did its reasoning process go wrong? You're basically a detective, and the crime scene is the AI's mind. And that leads us to how we even measure quality anymore. Welcome to Evaluation-Driven Development, or EDD. See, your classic unit tests don't really work when the output isn't a simple pass or fail. AI is probabilistic. So instead, we build what are called evals. These are huge data sets of questions and perfect answers that we use to constantly test and benchmark how well our AI system is performing. It's the new gold standard for quality. Okay, so we've seen the now. Where is all this headed? Let's take a look at what the next 10 years or so might hold for us. So in just a few years, by around 2028, we're likely to see the rise of the Centaur engineer. That's a hybrid, right? Human and AI working together seamlessly. Fast forward to 2031, and we could be in an age of agentic dominance, where AI agents are doing most of the code production, and writing code by hand becomes a rare specialized skill. And then by 2036, wow, the lines could blur so much that the roles of product manager and engineer just merge. They become one single thing. A product architect who takes an idea all the way from concept to a scaled reality. So what's left for us humans to do in a world like that? Well, it's the stuff AI can't touch. This is our human moat. It comes down to three things. First, intents, asking, what should we build? And more importantly, why? Second, taste, that gut feeling. Does this actually feel good for user? And third, and maybe most important, ethics. Is what we're building fair? Is it just? These are the questions only we can answer. And I need to say this again because it is so important. All that experience you have, all those years you spent figuring out the guts of how a system actually works, the nitty-gritty of memory management, race conditions, database locks, that is not obsolete. It is your superpower. That deep knowledge is the foundation that lets you effectively supervise an AI. It's what lets you spot when an AI is confidently wrong and guide it back to reality. And that brings us to this really fascinating paradox we're all living in. The physical act of writing code is becoming trivially easy thanks to AI, but the actual discipline of software engineering, it's getting so much harder. The challenge isn't about implementation anymore, it's about comprehension. Can you actually wrap your head around the massive, complex systems that these AI agents are building on your behalf? That's the new hard part. So what's the takeaway here? The path forward for all of us is to move up the stack. You have to stop thinking of yourself as a builder of components and start seeing yourself as an orchestrator of systems. Your focus needs to shift to strategy, to verification, and to the biggest possible picture. Look, this future isn't something to be scared of. It's an incredible opportunity. It's stripping away all the boring, tedious parts of the job, all the boilerplate, all the syntax you have to look up for the 100th time, and what's left? The pure essence of what we do, solving really hard problems, managing incredible complexity, and ultimately serving human needs. The future of engineering is about to get a lot more interesting. The only question left is, are you ready for it?